Hello, Oprah, and greetings to your audience. First, let me introduce myself. Well, those who know me from youth know me as John Favors, and most of those who have been following me for the last 10 years in some of my cable TV programs know me as Swami Krishnapada, and internationally is Bhakti Tirtha Swami. My name is Bhakti Tirtha Swami Krishnapada. Most of my books are carrying that name, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, or BT Swami for short. I'm an author of 17 books that's now being translated into 15 different languages. I usually like to say that I wear three hats from different worldviews and perspectives. From a Western perspective, I'm a graduate from Princeton University in psychology and politics, and have become somewhat a student in international law and international relations and conflict resolution. From an African perspective, I'm an African high chief. 15 years ago, I was coronated in Nigeria. And from an Eastern perspective, I have been, for most of the last 20 or so years, the only African-American Vaishnav Swami. Now there's one or two others. Vaishnav Swami is considered by many as a part of the family of Hinduism, but a particular aspect, the family that represents the worship of the personal God, where one is constantly trying to understand more about their personal relationship with the Godhead. Now, to get right to the point, why am I having this wonderful opportunity to try to share something on your show? I am literally dying of melanoma cancer. And this is not just a gimmick, of course. I've been diagnosed at the 4th state, and I literally have weeks or perhaps months. So sometime back, literally just 3 weeks ago, one of my students here in America inquired if there was anything that I felt that I would like to do, or I would like to say, or where I would like to go, knowing that I'm leaving the body very soon. And at first I said, no, there's nothing, because God has been extremely kind to me. I have traveled all around the world many, many times. I give seminars and workshops in so many different communities, business communities, interfaith communities. Also in different religious sects environments. And in my own community, I'm one of the world leaders of the Hare Krishna movement. So I visit many of the monasteries that I have direct involvement to oversee in the world. And I've been had a wonderful chance to be a friend and sometimes like an advisor to several diplomats, and I've interacted and met over 20 presidents of different countries, and have tried to share special kinds of books and teachings with them. And I've also had a chance to interface with several celebrities. So in one sense, it was like, well, not really. They've been there, done this, etc. But then I thought, no, there's one thing that I really would have liked to have done, or particularly would feel quite joyful if I was able to do that before I leave the body. But if not, if somehow this would happen afterwards. And that was to appear literally on your show, because I felt two things. One, I felt somewhat, I'm American, African American, and a lot of my work has been much more on the international, the global arena, probably more than here in America, in the sense of the things that we do and things I help to coordinate, facilitate. For instance, in most of the countries, I do, the Good Morning Moscow, the Good Morning Ukraine, Good Morning Ghana, the major talk shows, and as well as some of the news networks. But somehow I never appeared on the Oprah Winfrey talk show, even though I've done the counterpart to your show, something like similar to your show in other countries. So it's almost like a prophet who wasn't fully known in his own village, in his own country. Oprah, there's an interesting aspect to my sickness that has a metaphysical and a spiritual counterpart. Some of the writings I do particularly emphasize leadership, servant leadership, principle-centered leadership. As a matter of fact, Stedman Graham is one of the receivers of of my leadership book and Spiritual Warrior. The point is that I have studied leadership in many different ways and have often wanted to make sure that I would be the kind of leader who was doing things to help people rather than using people to make things happen. So at some point, I started feeling in my travels and interactions and seminars and workshops, I started noticing so much intense suffering, and I felt that I needed to get deeper, become pure, become more compassionate, more selfless, to be able to help others in a larger way. And so I prayed to God to please let whatever is needed for me to go deeper in such a way that I could help people. And while that's happening, please allow me to be able to remove so many of the obstacles that many spiritualists, pious people, are encountering on their spiritual journey, so that they would have much more of an animated, vibrant, radiant, and joyful experience as they're trying to make themselves available to the service of God. And so it's somewhat similar to in the Christian tradition of intercessory prayer, or in the Buddhist tradition of the Bodhisattva, who is constantly praying for the welfare of everyone and ready to come back for many lifetimes for others to be helped, and is ready to take on suffering as long as others can be freed. So after making that prayer, literally a few months later, I found myself coming down with melanoma, cancer, and diabetes, and arthritis, and then accelerated prostate problems and bladder problems, so many different things that has brought me to this terminal illness. So in so many ways, even though it's very difficult, as anyone knows who's dealing with cancer, but at the same time, to know that one's life is of such that one can constantly be able to give some value and to try to show compassion and love for others up to the last breath that an individual takes. So I'm very happy in that sense of being able to have led a life since I was a child. As a child, I was like a child evangelist, up until this point of 55 years old, knowing that I was able to offer some service, and with the understanding that the Lord will respond to my prayer in various ways. And maybe even some of the people who watch your show and listen to this, who are dealing with chronic illness, that it will help them to deal with their own pains and difficulties with less complexities. The major thing, though, is that so many of the kind of things that I'm writing and emphasizing in my workshops and TV shows has to deal with solving material problems with metaphysical and with spiritual solutions. And a lot of my writings deal with global problems, national issues, ways to focus more on developing a healthy community, and ways to focus a lot in giving greater emphasis to development of relationships. All the kind of things, human potential things that many of your viewers are interested in, and many of those who've come on your show. Matter of fact, many of those who've come on your show are associates, friends, or people who I've even shared some of my books with, like Ilana Van Sant and Marianne Williamson and Deepak Chopra and so many others. Now, in conclusion, I thought it was also very timely because the first week of May, one of my new books is coming out, Die Before Dying. In this book, I take the reader on a journey with me through the process of death, allowing them to understand my own fears and realizations and my excitement about the adventure of what's available at the end of this transcendence. And especially since so many people in the world, in America, are confronted and will be confronted with chronic disease, and especially cancer. I think the recent statistics from the National Institute of Health is something like about 35% of Americans will have cancer, in the coming few years. So I'm hoping that in people reading this book, it will allow them to embrace death, the failing of the body, because everybody's body is going to fail at some time, but to be able to accept it and to have focus more on quality of life rather than longevity, and to be able to live one's life in such a way that when the person does leave, that they have very little, to look back for with anxiety. And also a book that'll be coming out just 2 or 3 weeks after this, after the Die Before Dying book, is one of my Spiritual Warrior series, Spiritual Warrior 6. And this book the title is addressing fanaticism, violence, war, sectarianism, and offering a peace solution. So this book looks at so many contemporary problems of fragmentation, of nationalism, of racism, of religious fanaticism. And I dedicate this book to a small country, Mauritius, where 1.5 or 2 years ago I was invited to the country to come as a friend, as a consultant, to offer that nation a plan of 108 things of how to arrest social degradation. And so I had the opportunity to meet with the president and the vice president and most members of the cabinet, and especially the Minister of Culture and Youth Affairs, to present this plan. And I thought, because they're such an unusual country that up to now have been able to honor unity with diversity in such an amazing way, but right around the corner, due to globalization and centralization of technologies, they still will have some of the same kind of problems. So I think this book will be very helpful for that country, and well as for people who are about conscious raising, who are trying to address one of these greatest ills that's facing the world today, that's putting race against race and religion against religion, gender against gender, tribe against tribe, etc. So how happy I would be if it's possible that I'm able to physically appear on your program before these weeks or months ago, before I have to say goodbye to this body. But if not, or for just knowing that I had a chance to offer this, and some of the kind of books that I write were made more available for the American audience, I would see it as literally a perfect life. Thank you very much.